Honourable mentions for 2018. 2018 just got better and better as the year went on, to be honest. Last year I had 5 honourable mentions, but I've increased it this year, mostly because I just want to bring up as many great albums and really good releases as I possibly can, because I just don't think there are enough to fit into 5. Like, there are just too many to fit into 5 is what I'm trying to say. We'll start off by saying though, a few albums grew off me a little bit. So if you're wondering why some albums I rated pretty highly and during the course of the year are on this list, it is because they just didn't stick the landing throughout the entire course of the year. And unfortunately, even though I liked them a lot at the start of the year or the middle of the year, as the year went on, there were just so many more great releases coming through, especially in like October and November. They just haven't quite made the official top 50 list. Doesn't mean to say I don't like them anymore, just means that they don't have that same impact on me as they did back when they came out. So they do deserve a mention, they do deserve to be checked out. They just aren't quite the same amazing experiences I may have had when I first reviewed them. Happens all the time, happens to everyone. I mean, I've got to say I don't particularly like Brockhampton's Saturation anymore, even though that was on my year-end list for last year. So it's just one of those things, as time goes on, your tastes change, albums change in their sound, they become dated or they become less effective. Just one of those things. It's kind of sad, but it's just how it goes. We'll start off this list though with Christine and the Queens. Chris. I think this is actually a really nice French pop, sensual, even sexy at times album. I think Christine has a really great voice. I think it just touches that right spot, you know, it's just so soft and airy while also being quite impactful as well. And I think this is actually a pretty solid album and has a lot of great pop tunes on here, like Girlfriend. You can't really go wrong with this. It made quite a lot of year-end lists, so I could imagine some people thinking it isn't quite that good, but I actually do think it is worth your time. Next I want to mention Lonker See. This is a very nice, spacey, psychedelic post-rock album that just is really, really enjoyable to listen to. I mean, at times there are some like empty spaces where I feel like it could have been filled out with a bit more of an engaging musical section or something like that, but overall I do think this is actually a really solid album and deserves more attention as well, because I don't really think many critics brought this one up this year, but I think if you're like into that post-rock sound, this is going to be for you. I Need to Start a Garden by Heynderickx, a very lovely folky acoustic singer-songwriter album with really introspective lyricism across the board. I mean, there's some great tracks on here like The Book Collector and some really just detailed, vivid metaphors sprinkled through. I find her songwriting really interesting. I think this album is a really good album in the singer-songwriter field, actually. I think by the time she releases her next album, I think I will be more in love with it. Hopefully anyway, but I do actually genuinely think right here what we've got is a really solid album that I think anyone that likes their singer-songwriter music, their folk, acoustic, Americana type stuff, they will dig this for sure. Next I want to give a shout out to Tony Molina. I know I did rave about this one when it initially came out. It's a very short 14-minute album that deals with a breakup, and I just thought everything about it was very impactful. I think the fact that it was so short just made the album feel a bit more harder hitting, because you didn't really have as much time to linger and think about what Tony was saying in the songs, so it was just sort of really breezy and passed by just as everyday life does. But unfortunately, with this album being so short, I don't know, I thought at the time I was going to return to this a lot and just have a lot of enjoyment out of it throughout the year, but I actually haven't really gone back to it much at all, so it just doesn't quite make the list, because it can't make a list where you know, I haven't given it that much attention throughout the year. It would just feel wrong, and honestly, as good as it is, it's just not quite as strong as some of the other Album of the Year contenders for me. Alicia Crampton next. This is a really cool, I think it's an EP, or it might even be considered an album. It's about 20 minutes long, just the amount of instrumentation and detail and technicality that goes into this album is really fucking masterful at times. Just occasionally sounds a bit like too much is maybe going on, or maybe the structure of the tracks could have been tidied up a little bit, but at the same time that could actually work in the album's favor for a lot of people, as I know that so many people out there, including Rick the Light, are absolutely loving this, and I can totally see why. This is a really cool release. Next, I want to give a shout out to another album that hasn't quite made my list, unfortunately. Amanda Shires, To the Sunset, really nice country album with a lot of flair and a lot of guts. A few tracks on this album that just have a really fiery rock attitude that I think Amanda Shires just sells completely, and it just brings in a slightly different change of pace to a lot of country albums that I've heard throughout the year and in recent years, and I think Amanda Shires is actually a really solid artist that a lot of people should be getting on board with, and just hasn't quite made my list. Once again, just haven't really returned to this as much as other albums that deserve a place on my list because of the amount of times I've returned to them and I've fallen in love with them. But yeah, Amanda Shires, really good album, check this out. Priscilla Renea with her album Coloured. This is an album that just falls short of my list. Actually, because once I've returned to it, I thought some of the elements on the album, the musicianship, kind of came across as a little awkward. I remember when I first heard it, I thought it was a really cool, fresh approach to country because she had this R&B and soulful blend that came together with the country sound, which I really liked. But just with subsequent listens, I noticed that some of the production was a bit awkwardly mixed together. So I think by the time she gets to her next album, she can nail this sound actually. But just with Coloured, there are some issues here and there. But lyrically, she's nailed it already. I mean, she's a great songwriter. So many great lyrical themes on this album, especially in the closing track where she talks about America and, you know, dismantles the societal norms and issues that are going on with their you know, the way they handle things. It's a really good track, and lyrically, again, she just nails it. And finally, my last honourable mention for 2018. So many great releases this year. Please check all of these out. And especially this one, I would say, because this is probably like 51 on my year-end list, if you could even have a 51 in a top 50 list, because this is Kikagaku Moyo, the Japanese psych rock band. Everything about this album is really good. The only thing that just stops me from loving it in the way I want to is just because they did this slightly better in 2014 with Forest of the Lost Children. But even still, I could imagine some people thinking both of these albums are equally on par, but I just think I have a deeper connection with that album from 2014, which is why I can't quite put this one on my list, because it just doesn't give me that same oomph that they did on their previous work. But honestly, it's really not that much different. It's a very good album, a very smooth sounding. Yeah, give this one a listen, it's really good. And that's it for honourable mentions. Just so many great releases in 2018, man. I remember at the start of the year, I was like, this isn't going to be a good year. It's just not, you know, panning out to be the great year I hoped it'd be. But by the end, I mean, I've struggled with my list, clearly. I mean, I've knocked 3 off that should have been on the list, which is rare, actually. Most years I have to think, okay, I've got like 45, let's just find 5 more that I really like, but they're not ones that I love. Whereas this year I've had to knock off ones that I previously thought I loved, so that's crazy. Definitely a highlight for the decade, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, so many albums grew on me as well, so we're going to have some great releases that are going to make the actual list, so I can't wait to put that out, can't wait for you guys to see it, and can't wait for what's to come next year. I mean, so many great releases this year, hopefully it carries on next year. Even still, I've got so many good albums to listen to from this year as well, so I'm fine for a while. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on these albums if you've heard them. And please listen to them if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. Have a good day. Goodbye.